The Kansas settlement had no use for a woman who could not hear. Lydia Vance was 24, with chestnut hair and green eyes that missed nothing except sound. The fever that took her hearing at age 7 left her in a world of permanent silence, and the world had been cruel ever since. The matchmaker wrote to a rancher named Ezra Cole, a man who had not spoken since his wife died. He lived in the Nebraska Badlands alone, and the matchmaker thought a deaf woman would be perfect. She would not expect conversation. She sent Lydia west without telling her the truth. Ezra met the stagecoach in a driving rainstorm. He saw a woman step down, her hair plastered to her face, her eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity he did not understand. She looked at his mouth, and he realized she was reading his lips. He had not spoken in 2 years. Lydia saw a tall, hollow-cheeked man with empty eyes and a beard that had not been trimmed in months. She signed to him, her hands moving in the language of silence, but he only stared. She took out a pencil and wrote, "I am deaf. I read lips. Speak slowly." Ezra stared at the note for a long time. Then he opened his mouth and said, "I haven't spoken in years." His voice cracked, unfamiliar to his own throat. Lydia smiled and wrote back, "Then we are both learning to speak again." The ranch was isolated, a small cabin at the edge of a canyon. Lydia walked through each room, touching walls, memorizing layouts. She could not hear footsteps approaching, so she learned to feel vibrations in the floor. Ezra watched her adapt and felt something stir. Weeks passed, and Lydia taught Ezra to sign. His large, calloused hands moved clumsily at first, forming letters like a child learning to write. She laughed, a silent, shaking laugh, and he found himself smiling for the first time in years. At night, they sat by the fire, communicating with hands and notes and the occasional spoken word. Ezra told her about his wife, about the fever, about the silence he had chosen. Lydia told him about the fever that took her hearing, about the loneliness of a world without sound. One afternoon, Lydia climbed to the ridge behind the ranch with a spyglass Ezra had given her. She scanned the horizon, a habit she had developed. Her eyes were her ears. A mile away, she saw riders, dozens of them, and she saw their mouths moving. She focused the spyglass on the lead rider's face, reading his lips with a skill she had honed over 20 years. He was giving orders. "The wagon train crosses the river at dawn. We hit them from the north." Her blood ran cold. Lydia scrambled down the ridge, her boots slipping on loose rocks, her heart pounding in her chest. She burst into the cabin and grabbed her slate. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely write. "Outlaws, wagon train, tomorrow dawn. 200 settlers." Ezra read the words and went pale. He knew the wagon train. It had passed through town 2 days ago, carrying families from Missouri to Oregon. He grabbed his rifle and saddled his horse. Lydia grabbed her slate and climbed up behind him. They rode to the sheriff's office in Pine Bluffs, 40 minutes away. Lydia burst through the door and thrust her slate at the sheriff. He read it and laughed. A deaf woman saw outlaws? Through a spyglass? Reading lips from a mile away? He shook his head. Lydia grabbed the sheriff's collar, something no woman had ever done. She pulled him to the window and pointed toward the ridge. Then she wrote, "I have been deaf since I was 7. I have read lips my whole life. I am not wrong. 200 lives." The sheriff looked at Ezra, who nodded slowly. The sheriff had known Ezra for years, a man of few words, but never a liar. He gathered his deputies and sent riders to warn the wagon train. Lydia insisted on coming. They reached the wagon train at midnight, camped by the river exactly where the outlaws had planned. The wagon master was a burly man who scoffed at the warning. Lydia stepped forward, her slate in her hands, and wrote, "They come at dawn. Northridge. 40 men." The wagon master laughed. Lydia did not blink. She wrote again, "I have nothing to gain by lying. You have everything to lose by ignoring me." the wagon master read the words, looked at her face, and saw something that made him stop laughing. He roused the settlers. They circled the wagons, posted guards, and moved the women and children to the center. Lydia climbed to the top of the lead wagon, her spyglass in hand, and watched the northern ridge. Ezra stood below, his rifle ready. Dawn came cold and gray. Through her spyglass, Lydia saw the outlaws crest the ridge and stop. They saw the circled wagons, the armed settlers, the defenses that should not have been there. Their leader's mouth moved. Someone warned them. Pull back. The outlaws retreated. Not a single shot was fired. 200 settlers never knew how close they had come to death. Lydia lowered her spyglass, her hand steady now, and wrote on her slate, "They're gone." She handed it to Ezra. The wagon master came to Lydia, his hat in his hands, his face red with shame. He asked how he could ever repay her. She wrote, "Tell your children that a deaf woman saved you, and teach them that silence sees what noise misses." The story spread across the territory faster than any telegraph. Lydia Vance, the deaf bride sent as a joke, became the most famous woman in Nebraska. Settlers paid her to watch their camps. The army hired her to read enemy lips from a distance. Ezra watched his quiet ranch transform into a bustling outpost with Lydia at its center. He saw her laugh with strangers, her hands flying in sign, her eyes always scanning. He saw her happy, and he realized he had not been happy until she arrived. One evening, after the last visitor had left, Ezra took Lydia's hands in his. He signed slowly, carefully, "I love you." She stared at his hands, then at his face. Tears filled her eyes. She signed back, "I heard you," and she had. They married on the ridge where Lydia had first seen the outlaws. The wagon master came. The sheriff came. 200 settlers came, some traveling hundreds of miles to thank the woman who could not hear. Lydia wore a white dress and signed her vows. A final wide shot of the ridge at sunset. Lydia and Ezra standing hand in hand, a spyglass hanging from her belt, his arm around her waist. Behind them, the canyon stretches gold and purple, and in the distance, a new wagon train rolls safely along the river. The woman who could not hear a gunshot had saved more lives than any gunslinger in history. And the man who had stopped speaking found his voice again, not in words, but in the silent language of her eyes.